Okay, so we're going to go into Blackboard, into Content. And the area that we're going to look at today is called the Gradient Mesh tool. And again, where did I find that? Under Illustrator Tool Tutorials, and that is under Comic Book Help Documents. So when you go into Content, we go right from the beginning, and we go all the way down. There's our two most important boxes, our comic book drop boxes for grades, and then our comic book help documents. And underneath writing your script are all the tool tutorials, and we're sort of going down in a row. And so now we're going to be on the Gradient Mesh tool. So the first place I want you to look is the Adobe site. So this is really nice because the Adobe kind of goes through everything that you need to know. So a mesh tool is object is a multicolored object on which colors can flow in different directions and transition smoothly from one excuse me, from one point to another. And when you create a mesh object, multiple lines called a mesh lines crisscross the object and provide a way to manipulate color transitions. So here's what a mesh object looks like. And it looks really kind of scary, doesn't it? But it's absolutely super easy to use. So I'm going to get out of here for a second, and I'm going to go right into Illustrator and show you that I created one, and I'm going to show you how. So let me delete this one, and we'll start from the beginning. So what I did to make this object is I just created an ellipse, right? And then I'm going to add, I'm going to change some points on my ellipse. So I'm going to grab my direct selection tool, or letter A. I'm just going to kind of make a water droplet, and I'm going to kind of take these two handlebars and drag them in. So there's my water droplet. Now, the one they had like a little bit of a curve over here. So I'll try that. So how can I do that? I'm going to grab my pen tool, or the letter P, and if I cross over the line, I'm able to add a point. Notice that I've got the plus sign next to my pen tool. So there, I've added a point. I'm going to go back to my direct selection tool, or letter A, and I'm just going to kind of give that little curve in there. All right, so there's my look. So the other thing I want to do is I probably want to change, so something's going to happen now when I go into the mesh tool, and it's going to affect, this whole background. So in this case, I have a blue background. What I think I'm going to do is I'm actually going to make this background kind of a lighter blue. All right, so there's my light blue. Now the mesh tool is in your toolbar, and it is all the way down. It's directly above your eyedropper. So it literally looks kind of like a little spider web, and the fast key for that tool is the letter U. So what we've been doing so far is we've been taking points and manipulating them, right? So here's a point, and we can manipulate it. We can then manipulate the handlebars. So what the mesh tool is the mesh tool is basically your points, but it's kind of like your points on steroid. So if I click on this mesh tool and I come over to my object that I've just created and I click, look what happened. I literally created a line going directly across with some other mesh. So if I come from the bottom, it tries to kind of look at the way I shaped this, and notice how it has a little bit of a curve in here. So if I want to like alter that curve, notice that I've got handlebars only on one side where it dissects. And here I have that other handlebar. So I'm going to go ahead and make a couple of these. And the way I do it is, notice that when I take my direct selection tool, something weird is happening. I'm getting the mesh tool next to it. Notice now I've got nothing. But if I go on the line, I have the mesh tool next to it. It looks like a little 4-quadrant tool. And I also have a plus sign. So this is my actual mesh tool direct selection. And what it's doing is saying, okay, you're going to make another mesh line. So let's go over here and make another one. And then let's go down here and make another one. And let's go over here and make another one. And I can maybe try one up here, but that's not really one I like. So I'm going to go Command Z. I'm not going to use that one. So now what I have contours of the shape that I just made. And at every dissection of every contour, I have a selection point. So I have a anchor point. So if I click that anchor point, all these other anchor points will be unselected. Notice if I roll over them, they're all still white, but the one that I clicked on is dark. So that's telling me that's what's going to be affected if I change my foreground color. So let's go ahead and grab, let's click off and just grab one point down here. So there's my point, kind of like where I might want my highest highlight. So I'm going to double click here and I'm going to change that to white. Aha. So see what happens. I get a nice little white gradient that happens. It shows me how far it goes out, and see how the feathers over to this area. So if I want a different color, let's say I want this side to be darker, because that's going to be the dark side, and I'm going to hold my shift key and grab a couple points, right? I'm going to give it this kind of like a dark line around the outside edge. I'm going to double click on this, and I'm going to go to my dark blue. And now look what happened. So it literally gives, now say I want to grab that dark blue again, I want to get that same blue, but I don't know for sure where it was. So I'm going to just, this time I'm going to grab my eyedropper tool and I'm literally going to click on that blue and look what it did. So now if I click off on my event, you can see what I did to my object. And I could continue to add, like if I want to add more colors, I'll grab my direct selection tool again, click over the top, and immediately the mesh tool appears for me and I can start to add some more colors. So let's say I want to give this kind of a purpley look. So I'm going to kind of come back to where that dark blue was, and I'm going to come up here and I'm going to add some purple. Maybe I'll make it just a wee bit lighter and I'll add that in. Oh, that's way too much. So, you know, I'm kind of stuck with, I can affect where that gradient goes. So you can kind of see here, I'm going to bring it back a little bit. And maybe I want it to come down into here. So let's go grab that point. Notice how that point is still white. So let's grab my eyedropper and go into that purple and see if I can get that to change. It's probably not going to, because it's an external point. It's an external point to the shape. It's not a gradient shape. So if I grab this one, let's go ahead and grab my direct selection tool again and kind of bring this one up. Now, if I want to drag this over, I can drag, see how I'm changing the gradient? And this is where it gets a little bit confusing for students, because you're like, oh my gosh, look at all those anchor points. I'm kind of feeling crazy now. But it's okay, because you can just keep moving it around. And if you don't like it, you can always go back and grab. So I'm kind of making that less. And I think I'll try this point and click off and just get this one point and grab my eyedropper again and go back into that kind of medium. So see, I'm getting like, it'll take any color I grab. So this is actually in between. So let's go here and get closer to purple. So there, I got that now. So let's take a look at it. Well, I'm kind of really liking that, you know. So this is what it does for you. It can make anything you have literally look somewhat three-dimensional. So I'm going to stop the video for now and